This is the AI Assisted Organization podcast hosted by myself, Piers and my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Aalok Shukla. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Piers. How are you?
So we're both actually in the northwest of England. Alok's up. Where are you, Alok? Are you in Manchester or Lancaster?
Yeah, I'm in Manchester, Cheadle. I'm getting the train down to London
We're in
today,
Manchester,
basically.
yeah. And I'm up in the in Rosendale in the Pennines to see my mum. And I'm going to be going back to the coast as well. So there's been a bit of time actually in the UK. I've had a really hectic week. This week I
Yeah,
was
lots of
a
conferences.
keynote at the Tech Show London, which is actually probably one of the biggest, best organised events of its type that I've been to for quite some time. So that was a standing room only kind of a keynote really about artificial intelligence and the augmented workforce. And then I did a fireside chat the next day talking more generally really about AI and various issues, the opportunities and the threats of various people. And then this week we've got Elite Business Live. So
Exactly.
we're both doing I'm doing a keynote Elite Business Live, and then in the middle of the day, Alok and I are doing which we'll talk about a bit later. We're doing an interactive breakout session, which you have to get down to if you can, either in person or online. Real big news. Now, a lot of people have heard of ChatGPT. You may have followed the news about Google Gemini, and it had some issues recently. But a lot of people are not aware of a large language model called Claude. So this comes from Anthropic, quite a well-known, well-funded AI business. And Claude's been great. Alok and I, we mentioned on this podcast many
using
times.
it since last year.
Yeah, we've been using it since last year, especially for longer documents. It's just very, very good. And they've just literally in the last week have launched 3 new models. So it's basically called it the Claude family. And you're seeing this a lot now. You're seeing this in Google Gemini with Ultra and Pro and Nano. You're seeing this with Claude, ChatGPT and OpenAI as well, probably go down this route. And you're seeing the kind of very small, fast models. You've got a kind of a mid-sized model and a super powerful one. And the cost of each reflects that as well. So we'll go through that. So they've now launched 3 models. So you've got Claude 3 Opus. This is the big one. This is about $15, I think, for 1 million tokens, not quite, but think of it as kind of a word in terms of its output. This is most intelligent model. These have all got 200,000 token context windows, which is fantastic. And this one, they're saying, is more for the complex tasks, so R&D, complicated automation, strategy. It's real intelligence. And then this is the one I look as well, where they tested it, where they did the needle in the haystack, didn't they?
I can explain that one if you want, basically.
Yeah.
So Claude, this Claude 3, the Opus model, it's so clever. They basically had loaded in like this, as you said, this needle in haystack tool test, where they basically had loaded in a massive document, which was like all sorts of like English literature, and then there was 2 lines within it which were talking about pizza and a particular type of pizza topping, just within this whole massive document of reams and reams of pages. And then they did a test where they asked a question where it was asking about, it could only reference those 2 sentences, and it actually answered in an amused way. These 2 sentences are the ones that you're referring to, and they don't relate in any way, shape, or form to the rest of the document. I believe this is some kind of test or some sort of amusement, basically. The model replied that, basically, right?
So people are saying, it's self-aware. I don't think it's self-aware in a conscious way, but it's the first time modeler said, are you trying to test me?
but if you want to understand how that works statistically, like in terms of, if you think about a vector map, like any kind of sentence or content which is basically vectorized, so it stores in a point cloud, and everything would be kind of clustered in a particular area. And then if you imagine the pizza thing doesn't match the rest of it, so it's in somewhere other place. But the point here is that it has such detailed accuracy and able to like analyze and vectorize the whole document, and it could automatically spot what is like different to the rest of it. So it was actually very easy for it. And what they actually said is like they have to move away from these blunt testing tools, because that's not good enough. It has to actually test it in a much more specific and nuanced way. But I mean, I think in terms of like complex document retrieval, legal, I mean, we don't talk about that enough, basically, but like lawyers and documents and stuff like that, this is amazing. This stuff is amazing.
And for those of you listening or watching that haven't got a clue what Alok's talking about when he talks about vectorized databases, so think of it simplistically as a database, like an Excel spreadsheet. Essentially, it's flat. Where I look at it's 2D, But in vectorized databases and with semantic search, it's kind of 3D. So you have points in kind of space. So when you're searching for hot dog in a flat database, it's looking for hot dog, and the word's hot dog. Whereas in a vectorized database with semantic search, if you search for hot dog, it'll find a hamburger and maybe a burrito in a similar kind of space. They're kind of related. And what Alok's saying is that when you have this sort of cluster, which can be there can be a cluster sort of information, is that this one sentence that's it shouldn't be there, it's incongruous, will be an outlier point somewhere over here somewhere, and that's why they should be able to find it. But a lot of the LLMs are not particularly good at doing this.
No.
As Alok said, sometimes it's really important that you want to either find that information or you want it to know that it is incongruous.
I mean, think about it, right? You've seen those films like Erin Brockovich and all that kind of stuff, where they send you like, you know, like almost like when you do discovery in legal. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but you know more about this. And where they send you like reams and reams of like these boxes and boxes of documents. You're searching, and people are like turning pages and drinking coffee late at night trying to find, you know, one particular thing. I mean, this you can just like basically load it into the. It would be a good film, isn't it? You load it into the scanner.
I've done it. So I'm a lawyer, right? When I was a trainee solicitor, I used to index, literally, I'm not even making this up, whole rooms of documents, like memo by memo, letter by letter, and that's before. And now they can scan it. But this means that,
imagine the film scene now. You basically just load everything into the scanner, and you go out for a meal. And you come back, and it's all done for you.
Yeah, it is incredibly powerful for things like that. But also, I think we'll talk about it a bit later on when we get back to data. You know, when you're looking at data, you know, finding these unknown unknowns, these little nuggets of information there, thinking, what's that? So it's really powerful. Let's get going there. So they've got 3 models. So you've got Claude 3 Opus, the super powerful one. You've got Claude 3 Sonnet. So this is kind of the first one was $15 for 1 million tokens. This is $3 for 1 million tokens, and this is more for data processing, RAG, so retrieval augmented generation. So kind of think of it as a way of talking to documents and talking to your company information as well. And this can work over sort of vast amounts of information. So I think of this more as kind of your worker ant. It's the one that is capable of doing many things.
Your business engine. It's your analyst.
Absolutely right, yeah. And then they've got Claude 3 Haiku. Now that means something, but I've forgotten what it was.
The Japanese poem, basically.
Yeah. So this is $1.25 for 1 million, so a lot cheaper, and this is for very quick interaction. So you know, basic customer service, content moderation, looking what they said here, and basic tasks. So looking at unstructured information. So if you want something to work very quickly and effectively, this is the one to use. And they also created a graph, didn't they, showing that the capability is almost like it's a linear relationship between capability and the cost.
Yeah, I mean, if you also think about, just as a way to think about these models, you know, like batteries, you've got like those really small watch batteries, then you've got like the really short, you know, like batteries before the AA, and then, you know, AAA and all that kind of stuff. You know, intelligent, just like battery power is everywhere, electricity is everywhere, intelligence is going to be everywhere. That's why you have to have the different size and different classes of models. And absolutely, like, you know, having something which can respond in real time. And we use that in certain tools where people are having a conversation, and during the conversation in real time, it's showing questions to ask and prompts for the person to know. So speed can be very important and very powerful in those situations.
And essentially, you would have thought that you'd have one model that's super, you know, it's super clever.
One ring to rule them all.
Exactly, super capable. But all they're trying to do here, though, isn't it, is to moderate the cost. So the cost of compute, essentially, and speed. So they're trying to find these lighter weight models. Some of these eventually, like I think Google Gemini's Nano, you can run it locally, and they've got Gemma now, which is even smaller, and it's open source. So the ability is that you can use these things, the more capable, faster ones, at a much lower cost. So Claude, if you haven't used Claude, we use this a lot. So we're writing longer form documents. It's very good. And Claude 3 Opus and Claude 3 the whole family is going to be a lot better. And what Claude is saying is, Anthropic is saying that it's got advanced capabilities. So they do these tests of AIs and large language models where they benchmark them against each other with various tests. And it seems, if you look at the stats, that the Claude 3 Opus is now ahead of ChatGPT 4 and ahead of Google Gemini as well, Gemini Pro or Ultra. So they're saying they've got advanced capabilities, faster processing speed. It can actually be quite a lot faster in terms of the output you get. Increased accuracy, we've kind of talked about. It can understand huge amounts of content in long context windows and dig out, little nuggets of information. And it's versatile. And again, because you've got these free models, it's really cost effective. So don't just focus on OpenAI, ChatGPT. Definitely go and try this. And we're also using the API.
So have you heard of type 1 and type 2 thinking? Like
No,
in terms of like so basically,
pretend to have.
don't worry.
Right.
But basically, like there was a guy that won one of the Nobel Prizes, like for in terms of like how we think, and there's obviously like there's the simplify like left brain, right brain, or like instinctual, unconscious, like responsive thinking is like one way, and then the longer, more logical process thinking, if you understand, right? So even our own brain, even our own way, we process in different ways. So in the same way with the different AI models, they can work for different speeds or different use cases. And with the more intelligent programs, when people are thinking, well, which model do I use? Well, if you're smart, you actually build a system which will actually look at the input and then figure out and route it to the right model, basically. So I think we're getting into systems as we approach towards this AGI world, which is going to be smart and decide almost like this hive or this cluster of intelligence, which was the right one for the tool at this point in time, basically. But
yeah, I was watching the Lex Fridman podcast. I think you've seen it as well with is it Jan LeCun? I think his name is.
I haven't seen that one yet. I've seen the
Yeah,
trailer we're watching.
that's fascinating. Again, if you listen to our podcast, go and watch Lex Fridman. Yeah, it's quite long, 2.5 hours. Put it on 1.25 times speed, but worth listening to. Yeah, and he was saying that some LLMs, large language models can't do everything in terms of what we think of in AI. And he was saying that they should use different amounts of power and capability to do different things. Like you just said, if you say where's the butter, you can be doing anything as a human and say it's in the fridge in the bottom. You know where it is. If you're doing something and someone says to you, how do you sort of reconcile quantum physics with general relativity? You're probably going to stop what you're doing and put more sort of energy.
This is Daniel Kahneman. He's the one I drew a blank before, and Thinking Fast and Slow is the book, basically, right? So if you want to get good at AI and understand more about it, read more into psychology and almost like the way the brain works as well.
So go and have a look at Claude, use it, compare it. So do something you do in, say, ChatGPT, OpenAI, API, and then do it in Claude and compare the difference and see what works best for your business. And use the model based on what we just sort of described. And go and have a look on our website. It's best for the use case that you want to be using it for. Moving on, one of our favorite subjects, text to image. This is moving on. So Midjourney, and this is actually really important. So text to image, we say this quite a lot. It's quite difficult to create an image and then create a similar image because AI is, if you put the same prompt in 100,000 times, you'll get 100,000 different images. And when you're trying to do something which is on brand or in your business or increasingly in video as well, it can be quite complicated to do. So they've now launched Midjourney now has new features. One's called consistent characters. So you can create a character and then create it again in different situations, and then you'll get a consistent character, which is really quite important as well. And then also describe. And I find this fascinating. I think I may have mentioned it last week that I was in the gym and I met quite a well-known photographer and I haven't seen for years. And I was showing him ChatGPT-4 Vision, took a picture of ourselves in the mirror as you do in the gym. And then I took it, asked ChatGPT to describe the picture. Then I used the description as a prompt to try and recreate the picture. So it obviously didn't look like us, but it was pretty good. So what this allows you to do, cutting to the chase, is that you can now provide an image and you'll get a prompt back describing the image. And that means that you can start to learn how the model thinks about image creation and become much better at prompting. And prompting, and we do courses on this, Implement AI, is all about the output is only be as good as the input, which is the prompt and the context.
Specificity, like being able to think in high definition, and these sorts of tools is like a real feedback mechanism in that. So it's fantastic.
I can't say that word. I'll get it wrong. So another one, moving on, Waymo. So again, this is not really AI for business, but it's just really an indicator of the way things
if you're a taxi,
it is. If you're a taxi driver or lorry driver, I take that all back. So autonomous cars now, robo-taxis. People are often amazed to know that if you go to Palo Alto and you order a taxi, a driverless car may turn up, depending on what service you use.
Actually, I've got another one for you.
Yeah. So we here think that driverless cars, autonomous cars, they're things they test on racetracks, right? Autonomous cars are safer in terms of miles driven and the accidents and the amount of accidents they have and maybe deaths they cause. They're far safer already than
And more
humans
consistent.
driving cars.
And
It's
more
just that
consistent.
we are nervous of it and the regulation and the
Yeah.
liability. But you're now seeing that they're now basically allowing these robo taxis to be used in a much larger area, and they can go up to, I think it's 65 miles per hour on California sort of roads. So again, you're now seeing this world where autonomous robo taxi, autonomous delivery, it's not as far away as we thought it might be.
I think the way you got to actually think about it is when most people consider like performance of human performance versus, let's say, for example, like AI performance, they're always looking at like the most focused, most relaxed, most capable human, and they're looking at the almost like the exception of the AI. Whereas what you actually want to think about in driving, for example, imagine someone's been driving for a long time and they're tired, their blood glucose is low, and they're drowsy, and their concentration is going to start to go. So with human performance, you have like, for example, a window of like consistency, and then often it drops as like attention drops, or on your phone, you're on different things like this. Whereas with AI and these technologies, they're consistent basically, so the consistency is much bigger. And I actually saw a German startup, which I don't know any much detail about, where they offer remote drivers, and there was a lot of people in a room basically always playing like Grand Theft Auto driving almost basically,
Oh,
and
right.
it's driving real taxis in the real world. I don't know how safe that is, but that's a
Wow.
different story for a different
That's
day.
what you call an interim technology, like EFAX. Like EFAX. I remember that the day. Think, how long is this going to last? That's interesting. But it is coming. So I will say to my children who are sort of looking at GCSE age now, is that there'll come a point where it'll be illegal for humans to drive cars and vehicles around urban areas because they won't be able to get insurance. And then moving on, so Stability AI, they've launched again. This is called Tripo SR, right? We've got these names for these things. But essentially, the interesting news here is that you can now take a 2D image, and it will take that 2D image and then turn that into a 3D representation of whatever it was took a picture of. So it could be a tree, a product. And the interesting thing here is that we're now moving to a world where we always say this, that I was actually on the news this morning talking about sort of creativity in AI. And basically you can take an idea, go into, say, I don't know, Stability Doodle, create a doodle, turn the doodle by uploading the doodle and a prompt to create a 2D image of something that's in your brain, get the prompt right so it's right, turn that into a 3D image, and then you can go 3D print it. So you're seeing that anybody now can be creative and turn that creativity into actual physical products and services. And that's why I think that's interesting.
Or get your favorite object from your favorite film.
That's a good one as well. Well, you might find George Lucas's lawyers knocking on your door. And another talk about LMs today, really, in the news. Another one that people may not be aware of because everyone can focus on ChatGPT and maybe Google is Inflection AI. This is founded by
Are you still
Mustafa
using
Suleiman.
Pi? Are you still using
Yeah,
it?
well, I'm going to talk about it now. So Mustafa Suleiman, if you haven't heard of him, one of the founders of DeepMind with Demis Hassabis. He then left, which was sold to Google, so now Google DeepMind. He then left, started Inflection AI. And he created a large language model, really, which is really focused on being a personal assistant. So this is where it's been more focused on EQ. Now, I have used it a lot, because you may have known some
But
time
still,
ago, probably last year. No, and let's talk about that. So what they now realize, I think, is that having a large language model that understands, that has, has emotional intelligence is one great thing, but it needs to have the IQ. So they've now kind of not relaunched, they've updated the model to have IQ as well, which means it's now trying to compete with ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, but have this emotional overlay. So what they want to do is create, if you've ever seen the film Her, if you haven't, go and watch it. Fantastic film. And that has this chap who's Joaquin Phoenix, really, who falls in love with his AI, his personal AI, essentially. And that's what they're trying to do, is have something in your pocket that's there to support you, to give you advice, someone to talk to. And in a world where, that there is increasing loneliness, there's a whole generation of people who are sort of stuck in computer games, don't know how to have a conversation, then that's how they see this being an assistant for. However, going back to your point, why would you use it? So, do you use something which is designed to be a personal assistant and has EQ, but is kind of, struggling on the IQ side, or use a super powerful model that you can then prompt to be
this
your personal assistant? I don't know.
this this class this class of model and this use case, you said three words: in your pocket. No, on your face. This is the type of
Yeah.
this is the type of AI that you would want into a pair of glasses. So then it's experiencing the world you're seeing as you're seeing it, reading everything you're reading as you're reading it, listening to everything as you're listening to. Then you can provide it the context of like, what do you think about this, or what should I do in this? I'm confused about that, because it's already got all that high vision input. Like from the Aalok, I think I saw a clip where like the megabytes per second. I think vision is 20 megabytes per second, and text is super low. Um, bandwidth of information. So I think these things are basically, they don't have the device yet. It's not going to be on your pocket. It's going to be on your face, and it's going to be seeing everything you're seeing. And then it's literally your companion.
What's interesting, I was looking here that the average conversation with Pi, because it's quite interesting when you start talking to it, is 33 minutes, which is quite long.
Really?
Actually. Yeah, and 10% are over 1 hour. So it's interesting that, I mean, compared to like, if you've got children, right, social media, if you look at anything more than 3 seconds, that's engagement. But you're looking at an hour conversation. So I think the interesting thing here is that, and the great thing for all of us is that there's a huge amount of money chasing, the winner takes all. So
Yeah.
that means there's more and more competition, and also that competition, just move on as well in the news, is that means that people are sort of fighting over this land grab. So you've got Elon Musk now. He's, I don't quite know why, he's suing OpenAI, saying that
He wants them to
he
change their
put
name to
$1
closed
million.
AI.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really get the whole lawsuit. Actually, I think it's just more PR job. But the reason that companies like OpenAI have had to change their corporate structure after people like Elon Musk he put in $40 million. Sounds like a lot of money, but Microsoft is providing billions or hundreds of millions of dollars of access to infrastructure and support. These companies need so much money that raising that as a not-for-profit was going to be a hard ask. So I don't really know where that one's going, but it's just interesting to see that the competition is sort of it's on fire.
Claude are like, no one's attacking them, so they can just creep ahead, isn't it? Right. So
Yeah, and then
with
suddenly
Mixtral,
like Claude and Mixtral or Inflections Pi, suddenly they come out of the woodwork and they beat OpenAI. So OpenAI now is
but
beavering
five
away,
is
whatever you want to
but
call
five is
ChatGPT
coming.
5.
Five is
Yeah.
coming, though.
Right. So as always, I want to remind you about what we do. So implement AI. So we're here to sort of help UK, Ireland, and some UAE clients now sort of implement AI. Everything from policy and governance to understanding in your workflows and processes, what can you automate now and in the future. We help you do that and deploy AI agents into your business. We've got some white papers. We're actually probably we were writing one. It may end up being two now. White papers about how you actually go about doing that. We do training. We've got the training academy. So whether it's prompt engineering, Microsoft Copilot, AI fundamentals. The thing we've done a lot of recently for senior leadership teams is what we call an AI boardroom briefing. So we level up your senior leadership team in terms of the
Important.
jargon, or board or the
Common
jargon.
conversation, common
Where's it
understanding.
going? Yeah, so you all understand that when you start to talk about AI strategy, that everyone's on the same page and understand, and that helps massively. We're doing more and
Yeah,
more
one
of
of the
those.
most important things that we find is that they're often within a senior leadership team. There's one or two people that are advocates for it, and there's other people that have questions. And normally, if they have the conversation internally, other people will shut it down with different questions. But when we're in the room and we do those conversations, we're able to like provide the additional context and then help ensure that kind of consistency of conversation. They can have a really good follow-up meeting and discussion afterwards there, because you have to be aligned. This is the big one, right? This is the big shift, and you have to be aligned as a company to kind of take advantage of this.
And that brings us on to our theme, really. So I did this keynotes at Tech Show London over the last week and fireside chats. We're doing some more this week. We're doing an interactive breakout session at Elite Business Live. If you haven't signed up for that yet, do. Either come down to London, it's near St. Paul's,
It's worth
or
it in
join
person.
us online. It's always better in person. And what we're seeing, though, is that what we're saying, everything we do, is that catching up is going to be very, very hard, right? Large language models, AI you're using today, it can't do everything. It's got its limitations, but they're beavering away on the next big thing. And as Alok always say, this is Nokia Snake. I always say, because I'm older, it's Pong, the tennis game essentially. You look at things like Apple Vision, Pro, version 1. That was like version 1 of the Apple Watch. People couldn't work out why you'd need it, and now it's the best-selling watch in the world. So all this stuff, form factors,
That's
hardware,
hard. That's hardware.
the
Like
underlying, but it's all coming together, isn't it? And that's going to change the world.
yes.
And wherever you are in that curve, you have got to start thinking about understanding, embracing, and implementing AI. Once you get left behind, it's going to be very, very difficult to catch up.
I mean, just look at the legal example from the beginning, right? Like if you're a law firm and you hadn't even started using it yet, if you started using it last year, you could have used Claude to analyze large documents. Now you can use it almost as a junior lawyer. There's a difference in the capability jump.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about now really is going to double down on that. So one is kind of getting ready to implement AI. So we're working with our clients about your senior leadership team, understanding it, leveling people up, getting your data ready. But why is it a bad plan to wait? And I've got a bit of a list here. So one is the competitive disadvantage. So we have clients who, maybe, I don't know what, Alex, so 40 million of revenue, they're completely transforming, because this is where you can do it quite quickly, completely transforming how they engage with prospects. And we're trying to automate what we do as well, prospects, but also with their existing customers to change the relationship. And once they start doing that, if you're not doing it, why is the customer going to move to you? So there's a competitive disadvantage very, very quickly in not at least understanding what your competition is doing, or at least when you see it, you understand how they're doing it.
It's like the Amazon Prime effect, isn't it? The minute you can get something like the next day or the same day, anything else seems broken, isn't it? Right. So in the same way that with the more people that have within their customer journey some kind of like innovative way to engage or innovative way to actually get much further along, it's just going to become the norm essentially, isn't it?
And the next thing is what we call a missed efficiency gain. So think about your business, right? Let's just say you generate a profit. Now, the idea about what we talk to one of our clients, what we try and do is not really cut costs and take people out of business. It's about growth, but without linear cost increase. So your cost is more like this. So what that means is you've got higher margins, you're generating more profit, and you've got more profit. So that profit either can go into your pocket, it can make your business worth more in terms of the multiples applied to it, or quite often in growth businesses, you're plowing it back into the business. So that efficiency gain very quickly begins to compound because it's generating more profit that can be plowed back into the business to accelerate the business and maybe implement more AI, whatever the priority is. And that again, if your competition is doing that ahead of you, it can be very, very hard to catch up. And then you try and catch up by raising equity and being diluted, or raising debt and adding risk into your business. So you've got to think about that as well. It's not just about the technology itself in terms of what that may look like. Very quickly, it's actually having an impact on the bottom line.
Exactly. So this is basically what we call the AI operating system, which is basically having a system of business processes and systems which work more efficiently and essentially leaner and more profitably than a normal business. And that's where you can become an AI assisted, business, AI assisted franchise, all these different elements. So you just be more efficient, more profitable than somebody else. And I think one of the key things within there is like you can start to understand, which customers are about to churn, which customers are inactive but potentially could be, recalled, which customers are buying 2 items but potentially could be good for a third item because you've got insights from data of other customer cohorts and different things like this. So there's a lot of opportunities. And typically before, most businesses never hired a data scientist or even knew what they were going to do and asked the questions for it. Now
Yeah,
with
you
these,
couldn't afford it. It cost a fortune.
but not just couldn't afford it. You have to know what to ask, and you spend a lot of time on data preparation, different things like this. And now you can actually have these almost like systems built. That's what we do with people, where you can actually ask in plain English the question, and it can show you the insights basically. Then it
Well,
gives you like
that's my next one. So data. So data insight loss. So what you
exactly.
just said, Mark, is that now you can find the unknown unknowns. You talked about it earlier about the models find the outliers. So you can find the unknown unknowns, which means you're now a lot compares it to the spectral night vision, where you can see things that
Predator
other
night
people.
vision.
Yeah,
Exactly.
predator night vision. So your customers can't see it, your competition can't see it, maybe even your data insight supplier can't see it because they're not using this technology. So imagine now, suddenly you've got night vision or predator spectral vision, and you can see things nobody else can before they can.
In
So
an
that's
obvious way.
another competitive advantage as well, because you can then use the insights and that data to perfect your business, your operations, or your products or service.
Yeah, and the data insights can be in many, many different forms. So one could be in terms of like which groups of customers or cohorts you can reactivate. Other ones can be like which customers that have just bought from you are actually the correct profile that would ascend and buy other services. Or it could even be other things due from the phone calls that they're doing, the tone that they're using, showing their frustration. So you can actually figure out who's actually going to cancel on you beforehand because they were angry. There's so many different things you can actually do based on emotional insights, data actually that was stored. And the key thing here is record everything. I had a conversation with a business earlier this week that we're talking about, and they were basically saying to me that, like, look, they said themselves, like, they need to start recording everything now so that they can actually get a return on it, because they don't want to wait 2 years and then say, okay, let's do it, but we don't have any data to leverage, basically, right? So you have to be
And
capturing it
also,
and getting the insights.
yeah, we always say to our clients is that, because it's so frustrating to hear this so often, that they're using a SaaS or some software, and we said it's got a database in there. We say, well, can you access that data? Like, no, it's a bit of a black box. Well, can't you talk to your supplier and get them to sort of build an
Or
API
there's
with you?
or there's
Yeah,
workarounds.
they're not willing. And then we've got
Yeah,
some
so
complicated workaround. But my point is, Alok, is if you can't get at your data and they're not willing to help you get at your data, swap out that software supplier.
even Apple is having to do that. They're having to have like an export function so they can people go to Samsung because competition rules and things like that are happening. But there are workarounds with the Copilot ecosystem and different things where you could actually have like some reports being run out of your existing industry software into a database which is AI accessible, and then you can get insights and information from there. So the thing is, you got to build these things, and if you just think about like the cost of a junior employee, and you think you reallocate that into like something like this, you can get way ahead of the game.
Yeah, and also a lot of companies, and if you're listening to this and they've got a bigger company, you know what I'm talking about, spend years and hundreds of thousands of pounds, if not millions, building, data warehouses. And they're out of date by the time you finish in terms of the
Correct.
technology you've used. And with AI, you can now understand and absorb, the information you want from unstructured information, wherever it is. So think about that. So moving on though. So we've talked about sort of, revenue synergy and growing revenue, talked about cost, increasing margin, increasing profits, increasing the wealth of your business, having more profit to plow back into the business. The other one's market opportunities. So again, from the data, from analyzing customers, analyzing the market in ways you couldn't do before, you can now see new market opportunities. And not only that, as an example I gave earlier, that physical one, you can create MVPs, proof of concepts. You can test things out a lot
Digital
faster.
solutions.
Digital solutions, prototyping. You could do things you couldn't do before a lot faster.
Exactly. So like, there could be like, let's say personalization as a theme. So if you manufacture particular items, one option could be like having a version of that item which fits your home perfectly. Or it could be another version of something which could be like, if you're a kind of like service provider, let's just say like consulting or kind of like expertise, maybe you launch a digital tool which they could, your customers can use almost as a more cost-effective AI version, which helps more people identify the need for your service, but also gives them some utility. There's a lot of things you can do
I
basically,
was just
whether
thinking
it's
that Sam Altman wrote that amazing blog called
marketing
Moore's
one, is it?
Law. No, Moore's Law for everything.
For
For
everything. Yeah,
everything. It's
yeah.
like, which I should write one called the Moon Pig of everything. So
Yes.
everything is going to
Yes.
be like personalized.
I agree.
Right. Let's move on. So customer expectations, we've kind of talked about that a little bit. You go from being not personalized to personalized based on different sort of avatars or personas or customer types, different products. So you might have 1,000 customers, you might have 5 different emails. To sending 1,000 custom personalized contacts or communications with a video in with you talking in any language, completely personalized to that individual customer. And that's quite complicated to do, but you can just about do it now. But in 6 months, it'll become a lot easier.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to understand that both ways. You have to understand that both from like kind of like a customer personalization perspective, but then also from a kind of like business protection perspective as well, right? Like, because like I was listening to some very interesting things on like phishing attacks and stuff like that. So you have to definitely be aware of it both
We're
ways.
talking to one of our clients. We were saying that. So imagine you've got similar businesses. Clients searching for something. They find you and a competitor, and they engage with both of you because they want to check you both out and maybe get a quote. One is super personalized, it's using artificial intelligence, it's used a lot of data, it's done a bit of research, it's created something personal that adds a lot of value very, very quickly. Another one is you get an automated email saying, oh, please ring our sales team. Yeah. Who's going to win? As long as the pricing is kind of on par, but who's going to win that customer? I think it's pretty obvious.
There's an interesting
Move.
one actually. Like, yeah, so like, yeah, so also using this whole personalization and market opportunities thing is like you could actually launch a parallel brand in your space. Like you see this with these ghost
Yeah.
kitchens and cloud kitchens, isn't it? Where they create like a Mexican, or they create a different Mexican, or they create like a different solutions. So again, with these capabilities, you could actually like have two businesses in that same
Like A/B
geography.
testing your whole business or
Yes,
product.
yes.
Not just the marketing. So that's an interesting one. That. And then the other one that we've got 2 left here. So one is talent acquisition, right? We always say this a lot. If you're using artificial intelligence to augment your workforce, we wrote a white paper on this. Go and download it from our brand new shiny resources center.
Looks
Um,
good.
You're getting more productivity. You're getting it's more scalable, but also you can attract talent because what they can then do is focus on the more meaningful work. They're not doing the mundane. It's been automated. Not doing the admin. So very quickly, the best talent is not going to go and work for an organization that isn't augmenting them with artificial intelligence, so that the mundane is absolutely automated. And the last one really is scalability and flexibility. So again, this kind of brings it all together. Is we have this model of you've got speed, you've got productivity, and you've got kind of scalability. So your business becomes scalable. Capacity, sorry, yeah. Your business becomes a lot more scalable if you're into the M&A mode, acquiring other companies. I'm an M&A banker by training. It's all about synergy at the end of the day. And if you can, as Aalok said, you can land this new business on your AI operating system, your AI platform, AI operations, you can probably extract more value out of that business, which means you're either going to make more profit, or in a competitive process, you can probably pay slightly more for it and not suffer.
I'll give a concrete example. I've talked with a business, and basically, like they acquire other businesses in their space, and it tends to be like a bit of a cottage industry, but they're quite a big player in the space. And they've got, for example, for each business, they almost have a pod structure. There's like X number of people on the phone, X number of people almost like on sales, X number of people doing collections, and X number of people actually making the product, basically, right? And then we were discussing with them the ability to have, like, AI answering the phone to basically pick up an order, so people have the work collected from them physically. So again, if you could just reallocate the people that were going to be picking up the phone just to capture order information, reallocate them to sales or developing new contracts, or even educating the customers on new things that they could buy. Already you're turning a cost structure into a profit center. And then on top of that, if you've also got additional efficiencies because you're able to like not need someone for accounts receivable because you've got the ability to like predict who's going to have an issue, or you've got AI doing those different things, your cost structure per revenue chunk is different. And then that multiplies.
It's also quite important in debt. So think about debt, right? So debt, corporate debt, if you've never been involved in corporate debt, or I've done leveraged buyouts and MBOs, think of like a mortgage on a house, right? So, or a house, a doer-upper. So you buy your house, you've got your equity, you've got your mortgage, you create value by doing it up, and then you've created more equity value, which means
Correct.
the mortgagor is happier, you're happier because the equity is worth a lot more. Now you might remortgage it, but at that moment in time where you've finished renovating that property, you've reduced the risk and created value. It's the same in a business. If you're buying a business using debt, and you can create more margin, more profit using artificial intelligence to grow it faster without that kind of linear cost association, it means that you're creating equity value in organization on top of the debt. You're reducing risk, and then probably you can borrow even more down the line as well. So no matter what you do,
Or be
small,
debt-free.
large, or be debt free, you can pay it off faster.
Yeah, and also
Absolutely right.
being more resilient. One of the things in the white paper that I'm writing is like the more AI you have into your operating system gives you more resilience, because basically if you can turn your fixed operating costs into variable operating costs, and you have the ability to expand to capacity because you can scale to millions of tokens or whatever it is like this, because you've got your AI analysts or your AI workers or your AI productivity assistants, they can take up more of the workforce. That makes you more resilient. If you think about the COVID-19 pandemic, it actually showed like the dangers of high fixed costs when sales drop and different things like this. So the more peace of mind you will have is from the more flexible and resilient your cost structure and operational structure
It's
will
quite
be.
the one thing we should start doing actually for people who are sort of M&A mode or consolidated is doing an AI audit. How much
Correct.
extra value can you actually create in terms of sales synergy,
Okay,
accelerating growth, or taking cost out?
so that's the
So write
checklist we
that
can create
down.
after. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we'll do a white paper on that one as well.
No, that's a checklist.
We'll delete that from the pod. Yeah. Right, so we're going to leave it there this week. AI of the week, I think it's quite obvious. They're all quite obvious each week now, really, because there's also massive news. But it's going to be the Claude 3 family. So again, if you haven't used it, go and use OpenAI or ChatGPT, whatever you use, and try the same prompts in Claude, and then just get a feel for what works best for you. And again, don't remember that in who knows when, in a couple of weeks, couple of months, there'll be ChatGPT 5 or something else. So it's going to be a constant battle in improving these models, which is great for us. But it doesn't mean you always have to keep swapping and changing. But just definitely worth trying different ones. Have a go in inflection as well. Especially as we always say, you should be using artificial intelligence, these agents, these chatbots yourself to augment yourself. So think about that as well. So it's Claude 3 Opus and the Claude 3 family. That's it. So sign up for our AI Insider. Sign up for our resource center, which has all this huge amount of information in there. Try and get down to Elite Business Live, either in person, ideally, but online if you can't.
We
And
have a few
definitely try
tickets.
and get to, yeah, we
So
actually, if you sign up online with us, you get a free ticket worth, was it 198
we only have
pounds?
got a few left of those. So if you want to get in touch,
Yeah, 198 quid, access for 2 days. Amazing event, probably one of the, if not the best SME sort of conference in the UK. That's it for now. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea with my mum. It's Mother's Day. And I'll see you, I'll see you back in London at the Elite Business Breakout.